Before the world was awake, the small home at the end of the dusty lane would glow with a soft yellow light. Inside, the faint clatter of pans and the fragrance of tea filled the air. It was the sound of life beginning again. The rhythm of a woman who never stopped moving, even when her heart was heavy. Her name was Sarah, and every morning began with her whispering a prayer for her 12-year-old son Ayan. To the neighbors, she was simply a widow who worked long hours at the corner shop. To Ayan, she was everything. She was the laugh that made mornings warm, the hand that fixed torn books, the voice that turned darkness into lullabies. The boy watched her every move, memorizing the way her sari brushed the floor, the way her hair slipped loose when she bent over the stove. She didn't have much, but she gave him a world stitched together with love. Each morning, she tied his shoelaces while he complained about school. "You'll understand one day," she'd say softly. He didn't know what she meant, not then. He only saw her smile, worn but bright, like sunlight through an old curtain. She always waved until he disappeared around the corner, as if she could hold him safe just by watching. After school, Ayan would find her waiting outside the shop, a tired smile hiding behind a bright, "How was your day?" She never let him see the roughness of her palms or the ache in her feet. Her pockets held coins, but her heart held dreams for him. Dreams bigger than their town, bigger than their hardships. At night, they'd sit by the small window, eating rice and lentils, talking about the stars. She told him each one was a promise. Some kept, some waiting. "If you ever feel lost," she said, "just look up. I'll always be there, one of those lights." He laughed then, not knowing how true those words would become. The days blurred into months, seasons changed quietly, rain tapping on tin roofs, summer winds bringing dust. Sarah's hands grew thinner, her face paler, but her spirit never faded. When Ayan drew pictures of her, she'd laugh, "You made me too beautiful." But to him, she was perfect. One winter evening, Ayan returned from school to find her coughing, her body shaking. She brushed it off. Just the cold. But the nights grew longer, and her breath shorter. Ayan started doing chores, burning his fingers trying to cook, waking early to fetch water. He thought he was helping, but he didn't know he was also saying goodbye one small act at a time. She stopped working, but never stopped smiling. Even in weakness, she tucked his blanket, told him stories of angels and oceans. "Life will test you," she whispered once, "but kindness will keep you standing." He nodded, not really understanding. The day she couldn't get out of bed, the world outside felt too quiet. He sat beside her holding her hand, tracing the lines of her fingers. "You'll be fine, Ami," he said. She smiled faintly. "I already am, because of you." That night, he dreamt of her walking through sunlight, her hands open, free from pain. When he woke, the room was still. The tea kettle was cold, and the silence, it was unbearable. He didn't cry at first. He just sat there, his small fingers gripping her still hand, whispering, "Wake up, Ami, please." When the neighbors came, when they took her away, he stayed quiet. Only when the door closed did he let the tears come. Heavy, endless, like rain that wouldn't stop. Days became blurred faces and sympathy he didn't want. The world moved on, but he didn't. He kept her scarf folded near his pillow, her handwriting tucked in his school books. Sometimes, at night, he'd whisper her stories back to himself. Every word she'd ever said, every laugh she'd ever given, it was his way of keeping her alive. As years passed, Ayan grew older, taller, quieter. He painted, not for fame, but for her. His art was filled with skies, hands, and soft eyes that looked just like hers. Teachers said he had talent. He said he just missed his mother. When he won his first prize, he stood on the stage, holding the certificate high, whispering, "This is for you, Ami." He never stopped living by her promise. When he saw beggars by the street, he shared his lunch. When he met sadness in someone else's eyes, he smiled. The same smile she had given him all his life. People wondered why he was so gentle. He never explained. Some loves don't need words, they live quietly in every choice we make. When he grew into a man, he returned to that small house. It was old now, half empty, yet filled with her presence. He cleaned the shelves, polished her photo, and whispered, "I made it, Ami. Just like you said I would." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, soft, almost like her voice. Years later, he opened a small art school for children who couldn't afford to learn. He named it Sunrise Studio. On the wall hung a painting of a woman by a window, smiling, her eyes warm, her hands gentle. Beneath it, a plaque read, "For the woman who taught me that love never ends." Every morning, he'd see the kids laugh, paint, and dream. It reminded him of her. Her patience, her belief in kindness. Sometimes, he'd sit quietly by the window, sunlight on his face, eyes closed, as if listening. Somewhere deep in that stillness, he could still hear her hum. On his mother's birthday each year, he'd visit her grave with white flowers. He'd talk to her as if she could hear. About his students, his worries, his small joys. "I still try to be kind," he'd say. "Just like you taught me." And when the wind brushed his cheek, he knew she was answering. Love doesn't fade, it transforms. It becomes the strength that keeps you gentle, the courage that keeps you kind. Ayan lived that truth. He didn't have wealth or fame, but he had peace. The kind only love leaves behind. Even as his hair turned gray, he'd tell his students about her. Not through speeches but through small lessons. Be honest. Be kind. Always thank those who help you. He never said where those lessons came from. But every child who learned under him carried a piece of her warmth forward. And maybe that's what love really means. To keep someone alive not through memory, but through goodness. To turn loss into light. To let every act of kindness be a whisper of, I remember you. On his final evening, when Ian lay watching the sunset from his window, he smiled faintly. The same soft hum filled the air, his mother's melody, echoing through time. As his eyes closed, he whispered, I'm coming home, Ami. The room filled with peace. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold. Just as she used to say, some promises wait among the stars. Sometimes love doesn't need forever to be eternal. It lives quietly. In kindness, in memory, in the choices we make long after the people we love are gone. If this story touched your heart, let it remind you to call your mother today. To thank her for every small thing she does. Because one day those moments will mean everything. Like this video if you felt her love through the story. Subscribe for more heart-touching tales that remind us what really matters: love, kindness, and family.